Brothers and sisters, we made it. All right. Got to keep them on their toes. Make them to where they don't know when I'm going to drop a video or not. I don't want them to ever get used to being able to know. Now, this is Link. I'm going to share the screen, and we're going to get right to it. Now, when I'm talking about RIC taking off the white gloves, I'm going to focus on the Russian portion for like the first 20 or 30 minutes because it's like a 15, 20-minute read on this article. I want to elaborate and expound on some things. I don't really want to go into the Iranian part of it because it seems to me that Iran is going to wait to see how things play out with Russia before they start to make any real serious moves. China, is just China's being China. Stealing shit that ain't theirs. Trying to take credit for it. Ain't nothing else new. All right. Let's blow this up some. Let me make sure these nice and legible. Okay, let me blow that up. It's okay. Whoa. Let me break that down. And then let me blow that back up. All right. Big enough. I'll try to shift it over so that way my big ass head ain't in the way, but there you go. Okay. Part 1. Assessing the Russian geopolitical threat to NATO. Now stop right there. Disclosure, disclaimer, spoiler alert. I'm a proponent of balanced regional stability through influence. That means that I don't believe that any one group should have more influence, any greater than any other group, where they're not indigenous, native, aboriginal, or an inhabitant of the land. That being said, I neither condone nor condemn what is seen as an aggression by Russia, what is seen as a hostile action by Russia to defend their sovereignty and to make it to where NATO, the Northern Atlantic Treaty Organization, cannot place what would have been tantamount or tantamount to nuclear ordnance, tactical nuclear ordnance. Now, when I was first saying this over 2 years ago, because before they attacked Ukraine, I had already spoken and broke down that Ukraine was big and weak. You guys got to check out my RIC series. My RIC series spans a lot of this stuff, So I'm not surprised by the things that are taking place. Give me one moment while I get my mind right. So, Russian military is prepared for a long war. I mean, can anybody tell me what 20-year, 25-year military operations that Russia has been involved in on a global scale that literally disrupted everything on the earth? Can anybody tell me? The only nation we can think of that has that sort of might and power and has the proclivity to act that way is the United States. But here we are. Through his invasion of Ukraine, Russian President Vladimir Putin has made clear that the freedom and security of Europe depends on the West's ability to deter and defend against Russia. Unfortunately, while Russia is taking enormous losses in Ukraine, it is learning and rapidly reconstituting its military. On the eve of the Washington summit, the Kremlin's ability to threaten the North Atlantic Treaty Organization with military force is real and pressing. Russia's military policy to wear down Ukraine and the West by sustaining a prolonged war depends on a stable wartime economy footing, a resilient defense industry, and three principal warfighting capabilities: artillery, heavy armor, and manpower. The manpower probably should have been first. Like the Soviets' Red Army, Putin's combat formations rely on mass firepower, large amounts of heavy armor, and mass troop formations with favorable force to terrain and force on force ratios. In the meantime, drone and missile strikes terrorize Ukrainian population centers. Methodology: it is difficult to determine Russia's real military power. Continuing old Soviet habits, official Kremlin data is often exaggerated for propaganda purposes. Still, it points at a trend, adjusting Russia's pre-war defense industrial factory outlook to account for the country's current 24-hour workload also offers some insight. So what it's trying to say right there is you can tell what they really have by how much work is being done. Point blank. Likewise, open source intelligence can help track the military assistance Russia has received. For example, the number of North Korean containers carrying ammunition or imagery of the Iranian drone plant in Tatarstan can define the upper and lower bound of Russia's acquisitions. Another critical indicator is Russian artillery employment in Ukraine. Comparing Russia's units, artillery usage over defined periods of time can suggest when supplies are high and when they are low. Last, official bodies like the United Kingdom Ministry of Defense now offer declassified intelligence, and a number of Western think tanks, including the Hudson Institute, monitor the latest open source intelligence. The problem with assessing NATO's capacities are categorically different. Official numbers are more accurate and transparent due to accountability. The biggest unknown, however, is military readiness. While we have a detailed combat record of almost every Russian formation involved in the invasion of Ukraine, most standing NATO armed forces have not seen action for a long time. Did y'all hear that? Let me go ahead and reread that. The whole thing over. The problem with assessing NATO's capacities are categorically different. Official numbers are more accurate and transparent due to accountability. So there's certain numbers of the things that are not directly or indirectly related to the military readiness, they know all about. They got all that covered. Military readiness, they can't cover that because NATO troops don't regularly see action. The ones who do are sent to just the worst places, and then they're doing questionable activities. Like when they sent and it's not that NATO and the UN are all the same, but it's a really similar concept. But it's like when they sent the UN troops to Haiti, what was that? Back in '07 or '08 when they had that massive hurricane, and then it came to find out years later that the UN troops were raping the women, raping the men, like doing all kinds of crazy stuff. Right. Let's keep going. Russia's economic resiliency may also continue to cause trouble for NATO. While Moscow has written off 300 billion that Western nations have frozen, it holds roughly 580 billion in foreign currency and gold reserves. The financial cushion helps Russia continue investing heavily in its military. Since its invasion of Ukraine, Russian defense expenditures have fluctuated between roughly 4 and 6% of its gross domestic product, GDP, significantly higher than the NATO average in recent decades. And Russia's military expenditures have proven highly resilient to economic fluctuations compared to China and the West, which have invested a lower percentage of their GDPs in defense despite having stronger economies. So, and this is over a period of time. We know that during those years from Iraq. So let's just look at it. Germany, Germany can't spend a whole bunch of money on their military. They can't over militarize. So there's no surprises there. China can barely feed all of its people. So they're not going to over militarize. There's no need. The United Kingdom was able to pilfer China, right on, and India. And they have an interesting group of conglomerates who were not exactly a part of the military, but they do use, like the Gurkhas, right? And the other little group that they got over there in damn India. I forget their names, but they got a little special unit of Indian dudes over there who get down. So there's no need for them to really get crazy with their military spending. Right. And plus, you never know how much money the UK really has because, like I said, they fucked over China and India and every other place like that in the region and were able to steal, abscond, take whatever you want to say, natural resources and precious minerals and metals. Now, look at the US and Russia. Now, we know why Russia's spending has gone up these last years. Let's just break it down. Number one, we're looking at that 2015, 2016. So you guys got to remember the when they annexed Crimea, right on, spending became real sharp. And we're talking about this time period right here. That 2015, it just starts to just peak up, right? Okay, that's because they annexed Crimea around that time. And that's when they started to really start to fight. And then they pretty much had got what they wanted. So coming to the middle of 2020, let's say 2018, 2019, getting to 2020, right? Everything starts to taper off. They've already got what they wanted. And then coming into 2020, right? Things were looking different. And they was trying to tell Ukraine, y'all need to calm down on this whole NATO talks. Now the US, obviously, we can look at it, we can watch it, right? Just massive global dominance over everybody doesn't really matter. They can spend that much. They're making so much more money than everybody else. Well, that's what they're saying. Okay, 2001, slight increase, incremental increases all the way up till about 2008-ish. Stops, slows down because at that point there was a consensus that the Iraq campaign had been pretty much conquered, and now they just needed to give them a democracy. Coming up into the 2010 region, this is the rise of ISIL or ISIS, so they have to spend money on that. And then obviously coming into 2014, 2015, I'm not going to say the defeat of ISIL or defeat of ISIS, but the strategic victory that they would not hold several places to make them the Islamic State of the Levant, uh, blah, 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 blah. Bam. But this is just, I'm just trying to break it down to people like, and this is between 92 and 2020. So this is over a 28-year period, so this is a good sample size of how they've been spending money. And yet, keep this in mind, China's Navy is the largest in the world, if I'm not mistaken, right? And they haven't spent nearly as much as the US. Now, their Navy might not be as good because they might have a bunch of Timu and Shine built ships. I'm not going to lie, a bunch of Alibaba ships, but they have them. And every one of them is not worthless. Let's keep reading. In 2024, Russia is prepared to allocate more than 6% of its GDP to its military, the most since Soviet times. More troubling for the West, the Kremlin has some economic gains from the war. In line with assessments of how arms expenditures can drive industrial growth, the Russian economy grew at the rate of 4.9% in July 2023. Strategic industries related to the war have propelled this performance. Production of transportation related infrastructure has risen 66.7% since 2022. Computers and electronics, 42.6%, and navigation devices, 72.4%. Russia's food industry has also grown, with defense production ramping up. Russia has a record low unemployment rate of 3% last year. There's work for everybody to do. Now, war is not really good, but the work it creates, because there's a bunch of miniature industries. I need y'all to understand this. So I'm a use a real life point and example. You see this? You see this bottle right here? Okay. Now this all might be made in one factory, right? This whole bottle might be made in one factory. The whole thing. The thing is though, it all might not be made in one factory. This lid might be made somewhere else. The top to this part, right? This whole mechanism might be made somewhere else. And even the straw that goes on it or the tube that goes on it might be made somewhere else. The glass jar that it's in might be made somewhere else. Right on? And the labels might be made somewhere else. And all that might be shipped to the place that puts it together that actually sells it. See what I'm saying? So there's multiple jobs. There's always going to be a multiplicity of jobs created from one industry, especially if there's nuances within it. So when you hear navigation devices are up 72%, okay, that's the drones. That's them being able to GPS signal where they want their drones to go or where they want them to fly into and blow up on and all that kind of crazy shit. And I'm not mad at these dudes. I'm not mad at nobody for doing. They do what they do. They're grown. All I'm saying is make it make sense. You know, why does it take war for Russia to have a record low unemployment? But that's neither here nor there because RIC is about to take the white gloves off sooner rather than later. And when they take off the white gloves, because they've had them on, see what I'm saying? Russia done had the white gloves on this whole time. They could have went on an all-out scorched earth, fuck everybody tour, right on, and just brought destruction to everything. They haven't. So that's how I know that it's not all posturing and saber rattling. It's really just trying to tell people, like my boy Putin said famously, you know. And the dude said, is this another Cold War? Blah, 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 blah. And Putin said something to the effect of, I don't think anybody could survive a hot war. Let me repeat myself. They're talking about all this Cold War bullshit. And Putin said, I don't think anybody can survive a hot war. Real nigga. Real nigga. Now, while I take a little shot hit, cheap little shot. Let's keep going. Though official Russian data should be viewed with skepticism. The Russian military's operational tempo in Ukraine to date suggests that the production of armaments and munitions has risen. State-owned conglomerate Rostec, headed by career Soviet Russian intelligence officer Sergei Chemezov, has driven much of this production increase. According to the Kremlin's calculations, Russia's main battle tank production has increased sevenfold in 1 year. That's stupid. Moscow has reportedly quadrupled the production of armored platforms and more than doubled the production of artillery and rocket systems. According to Russian officials, ammunition production has seen a 60-fold hike. Told you, they're about to take the white gloves off. Likewise, Russia claims that drone production saw an 80% increase in 2023. Russian arms production is on a stable trajectory, and evidence suggests that Russian defense companies have transitioned their factories to 24-hour schedules, shortened testing times, and accelerated contract fulfillment. So they made it easier for people to get up in there. Right on? Yeah, you a felon on paper, but use a cold ass chemist, or use a cold ass welder, or use a cold ass technician / mechanic. We need you. Or you just a cold ass carpenter and a jack, an ace of all trades. You just the coldest type of motherfucker. We need you. Right on. They sending dudes to fight a war who are murderers and rapists and all kinds of shit and giving niggas immunity if they make it. Stop it. In late December 2023, the Russian Ministry of Defense announced that it received 1,500 main battle tanks that year, an average of 125 pieces per month. while Moscow lost between 600 and 870 tanks in 2023, roughly 50 to 73 tanks per month. Its production levels remain robust even when assuming that a substantial amount of these tanks were modernized, not produced from scratch. So, what it's saying is they took a bunch of old ass tanks, retrofitted them with pieces that they could use. So some of the numbers that you're getting of tanks getting destroyed are a bunch of old ass tanks. Now some of them are new tanks, don't get it twisted, but a bunch of them that are being destroyed are probably older tanks. The Russian defense industry continues to cannibalize the thousands of Soviet remnant main battle tanks in storage for spare parts. According to Russian sources before the war, the T-90 baseline had a 1-to-3 ratio of new production to modernization. This trend is unlikely to change while Moscow has these legacy systems in reserves. However, Russia's tank performance will ultimately hinge on whether Euro, Euro, Euro okay. Vagonzavid, its largest tank manufacturer, can produce new T-80s, T-72 B3s, and T-90s. Artillery. So they're saying right now, whoever this is, Vagonzavad, yeah, that's a hell of a name. That's their main tank manufacturer. And this is where I'm thinking that they do a lot of the retrofitting and modernizing, retrofitting parts. For them to be able to modernize the tanks means that when they made the new versions of them, they made a lot of the components very similar or exactly the same, only just with better structural integrity, blah 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 blah, or some of it's exactly the same and just has a different overlay, and the underlay is the same. Whatever that is, it doesn't really matter to me. But don't worry. How many? So here's my question: do you think America and all of Europe could produce more tanks and get them there safely? Because now you got to think, you can't fly all the tanks there. You got to put some of these motherfuckers on destroyers and whatnot, right on, and carriers and whatnot. Exactly. So what? So now you guys are talking about full blown wars. You think Iran and China are just going to let you just skate through the water untouched? No, of course not. Of course they would sink a ship that had 15, 20, 50 tanks on it. Of course they would do that. So my thing is just like, what makes you think these guys are going to keep the white gloves on? The white gloves are about to come off. I'm assuming during the winter, the white gloves are going to come off. And they're going to just obliterate a massive amount of Ukrainian troops. They've already done irreparable harm to the male population. This shit's gonna be like point of no return, you know. Uh, but if that's what they want, just keep going. Artillery is another critical component of Russia's ability to sustain a long war. State-owned Rostec produces the bulk of weapon systems that Russia employs in Ukraine. The company took control of 15 new enterprises in early 2023 to produce, excuse me, to boost Russia's artillery production capacity. Present assessments conclude that Russia is producing artillery rounds around 3 times more quickly than the United States and Europe combined and at a lower cost. So y'all can think this is conjecture, it's fake, it's whatever. Y'all can just be like, oh, we'll just surround Russia, we'll just nuke them. Oh, what about all the tactical nukes that are already in the United States and all over in Europe? What about all those tactical nukes that they can call with their sleepers or with their highly embedded cells? We're talking about people that are part of the fucking government, y'all. Okay, we're not just talking about, and I'm not saying Nancy Pelosi or Chuck Schumer or Mitch McConnell are like agents against the state. I'm saying though, it's impossible, it's highly improbable to believe that not one of these individuals who's at the highest level, who's not in the White House, who's in the Senate, the House of Reps, right on, governor, or gubernatorial candidates, right? Those type of people. It's hard to believe that not one of them knows about this type of stuff and is totally okay with it because they are an acting agent against the state. So you can talk about nuking Russia all you want, just as long as you're okay with somebody setting off a tactical nuke in the city that you live in. And it's very fucking likely that most major cities in the United States have tactical nukes floating around. All they don't have is the fucking armored warheads on them. And I'm sure that those dudes have that shit buried underground, far enough away to where Geiger counters and the likes can't pick up on them. How hard is that? No, like really, like how hard is that to do? Right. Or they have this shit already ready to go and they don't give a fuck. That's also a possibility. So don't talk about nuking Russia unless you are ready to have somebody unleash a nuke in your city. Right. All those Consuelos and all those Duyans and all those Farids and all those Mugabes coming across the fucking border. You think ain't not one of those niggas that brought some shit with them? Even if they had to bring it in micro doses. Think about what I'm saying. If you entrust 1,000 people with increments of yellow cake or uranium or plutonium, and you only get half those dudes to get to you what you were trying to get, because you still have a fuck ton of material, dog. So, and this is what they do, just in case y'all didn't know, this is how you really build bombs in the cities and shit like that. You build up the material over a slow period of time. This is why dedication, discipline, and what's the word I'm looking for? Being able to endure pretty much are all major. But let's just get back to the reading so that way we don't get too far off track. But I'm telling y'all, the fucking white gloves, Rick is about to take these bitches off. And I can't wait. Can't wait. Because I get so tired of being in situations where I'm more qualified. I'm actually probably the best qualified person for a certain job or a certain function, and I don't even get that love. And then you got dudes out here, nigga don't speak no English, damn sure didn't graduate from no American high schools, but somehow you got a job, you got a whole job with overtime and everything. And I gotta fight. Bro, man gotta fight to get a job. Nah, that shit's played out. So pop this shit off. I'm not worried about none of this shit. I hate this shit anyway. I hate the whole system. The whole system is built on some fake shit. It's rigged like a motherfucker. Not only is it rigged, but it's only meant for people who kiss ass to really thrive. Right on? If you shut the fuck up and you just do what they tell you to do, you'll probably have something. But if you're like me and you talk up and you're gonna speak up for the people, it's gonna be difficult to have something. Because I'm not a swindler, I'm not a schemer or a scammer. I'm not none of that kind of shit. And you got a bunch of those type of niggas who that's why the system lets them in, because they already know that these dudes is professional beggars. These niggas is professional whoop de wops. You know what I'm saying? And not to say that I don't have any work, because I have work, but it's like, why do I have to keep getting a different job? Why do I have to keep getting different jobs? Why is it that when I'm doing the job that I'm supposed to do, like motherfuckers just hate being around me, but they don't realize I hate being around them. You feel me? They think they only hate me, but I'm like, nigga, I don't even hate you. But I really wish I could just spike you on top of your head as hard as I could. The weed is the only thing that keeps me nice. A sober meat would be a not very nice man. Trust me, kindness and being nice are not the same. I'm kind at all times. Even if I'm kicking somebody in the face, I'm still being kind. I could be crushing their head. Right on? The only way I'm not being kind is if I'm literally ending your life. That is unkind to do. But they don't understand that. Smoking bud keep me nice. Make it to where I don't just smack the shit out of people who deserve it. Right. keep my hands to myself. All these niggas who talk all that whatever, they don't know. They've never suffered with bouts of like having to control violent impulses. Where it's like, nigga, what did you just say? Like once again, you can't convince me that it was okay to murder, maim, torture, rape, and do whatever the fuck they did to build this country, and now I can't knock nobody's teeth out. I'm not listening to none of that. That's illogical fuckery, nigga. You take that and tell that shit to somebody else. Like I tell all the police, if do not touch me. Right on. That's one of my rules with any police. Do not touch me. If I'm not under arrest, do not fucking touch me. Don't act like you're gonna touch me. Keep one arm fucking distance. I tell them just like that. So y'all hearing that last part though, right? That they're making 3 times the shit as the US and Europe combined at a lower cost. While early estimates suggested that Moscow could produce around 3 million artillery shells annually, recent forecasts say that the Kremlin can produce closer to 4.5 million per year. So while Russia's official production numbers are likely exaggerated in many cases, there is no doubt that the country's military production numbers have increased since the beginning of the war. So how are they likely? To what metrics are they likely exaggerated? To what metrics? See what I'm saying? He's not even giving us metrics to say what they're exaggerated on. This dude works for the Hudson Institute. He's against Russia. Right on? We're going to read this nigga's name again in a little bit. Funny name sounding motherfucker. But anyway, you know he don't want Russia to win. Available data doesn't tell us, suggests that the Russian military possesses roughly 5,750 main battle tanks, 9,000 to 10,000 other armored platform, more than 10,000 pieces of tube artillery and mortars, and more than 3,000 rocket launchers. Russia's combat formations, for example, are estimated to have 7,500 pieces of towed artillery, primarily drawn from stored Soviet remnant pieces that numbered 12,000 before the war. Now, how they got these numbers? You're going based on so-called exaggerated numbers and all. See what I'm saying? It's not intelligent for him to insinuate that they're bloviating or lying, but at the same time, you're going based on numbers that they probably gave you. Russia also operates certain formidable weapons that NATO should keep an eye on. The TOS-1 Buratino 220 millimeter class heavy flamethrower, for example, can deliver thermobaric warhead tipped rockets that ignite fuel-filled aerosol clouds that draw oxygen out of the surrounding air. Out of the surrounding air, meaning it amplifies based on how much available oxygen it is. It's super dangerous. Simultaneously, the weapon delivers a destructive blast that can reach temperatures of 5,432 degrees Fahrenheit, 3,000 degrees Celsius. The Russian Defense Ministry have used an even more lethal variant of this baseline, the TOS Tashaka in Ukraine. Other Russian weapons, such as the 240 millimeter class heavy mortar Tuyulpan, provide further destructive capabilities. Rostec is also producing Koalitsia SV self-propelled howitzer with an autoloader married to an uncrewed turret. This system has a better rate of fire than other 152 millimeter class Russian tube artillery. Built on a T-90 chassis, that's the old tank, the Koalitsia SV can reportedly fire up to 16 shells per minute and hold 70 rounds internally. An upgrade from the 2S-19 Mitsta S self-propelled howitzer, which fires some 10 rounds per minute and stores up to 50 shells. These artillery systems pose a serious threat even to NATO member states. No fucking shit. Now, here's my thing. If Russia just went on the all-out assault, you guys know that China's going to crush in from one side, go down all the way to the south, try to encapsulate and hold off all enemies, and then make a perimeter or cordon off a certain level of the perimeter, so that way it's hard to get inside of this joint. And you're talking about just literally just encapsulating all of Europe and just circling these dudes. And if the African continent were to join in on that for whatever reason, it would be completely fucking ugly. And if India were to say, you know what, all of a sudden, we ain't really beefing with China like that, it would get really fucking ugly. But hey, I'm just using my imagination. There's going to be people who fight each other within these groups. So it's not going to be a perfect our side versus your side, but there will be a whole lot of our side versus your side type of shit happening. But let's just keep going. The Kremlin's ability to generate power also bodes well for its long-term war aims. In his March 2024 speech to the Officers Club at Ramstein Air Base in Germany, U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin offered a quick overview of Russian losses in Ukraine. Now, notice this individual is not saying that this is made up, exaggerated, or nothing. Over 315,000 troops killed or wounded in action. More than $211 billion spent on the invasion, and a substantial portion of its Black Sea fleet destroyed. Shortly after Austin's speech, however, American officials admitted that Moscow replenished its ranks more quickly and effectively than anybody expected. U.S. analysis now acknowledges that the Kremlin has managed to significantly rebuild its fighting forces. Stop right there. Stop right there. Stop right there. As opposed to this dude from Hudson. It doesn't matter that he goes back and says, now acknowledges, right on, right? It doesn't matter that says, however, officials admitted. I don't give a fuck about that. That doesn't matter. This dude went and told bold-faced fucking lies more than likely. Did he kill all 315,000? Did he spend the 211 billion? Then how the fuck does he know? That's a baseline question. Once again, I can't wait till they take these white gloves off. I can't wait till they take the white gloves off. I can't wait till they take the white gloves off. They don't listen. Y'all can be mad about it if you want to. If their troops are taking steroids and you can't fight somebody on steroids and they overwhelm you and kill you, that's your problem. That's your problem. You should have been working out. Yeah, you should have ate your Wheaties. The Russian military has consistently bolstered its ground forces despite heavy losses in Ukraine. Before the invasion, the Russian armed forces comprised roughly of 900,000 troops and officers. In August 2022, Putin signed a decree adding 137,000 men in uniform. In December 2023, the Kremlin added 170,000 more fighters. So that's 300,000 people right there to the 900,000. That's 1.2 million. Raising so that it was more than 900,000 because it can't be 1.32 because that's a zero and that adds to that, and 3 plus 12, I mean 3 plus 9 is 12. Anyway, raising its total to 1.32 million men, so there was more than 900,000. Official data shows that 490,000 servicemen, mainly conscripts, joined the Russian military in 2023. This is likely part due to the Kremlin's generous terms. Russian contract troops are paid 210,000 rubles or $2,300 per month to fight Putin's war. As of early 2024, some 470,000 Russians were involved in the invasion of Ukraine. Okay, so imagine if the U.S. said this to some niggas in the hood. Look, Quantavious, you know what I'm saying? Because fucking Quantavious is a junior. Quantavious Jr. Look here, Junior. If you join our military, we'll listen. You're out here, you might make a couple grand a month. Listen, Quantavious. Listen here, Junior. We'll give you the money you're making, and we'll let you kill people. And you don't got to worry about going to jail because you'll be doing it for us. How many niggas you think they could have got to go fight in Ukraine? A whole bunch. If you tell a nigga I'll give you 5 racks a month to go fight some white people, he probably gonna do it. These are white people fighting other white people for 2,300 a month. And some of them are not exactly white. Some of them are Mongoloids. Some of them are Mongoloid Turks, Mongoloid Turk Frank. I don't want to get carried away into the bloodline stuff right now. I just want to talk about them taking off these white gloves and just trying to give some emphasis to it. Quantavius was never given an option to go. Right. They want him to join the army and go and get some weak. Nah. If those mercenary groups really wanted to do some shit, they would go to the hood and recruit. That's what I would do. If I had an overseas Blackwater type of group, you know what I mean? Right? Black Tusk type dudes. You know what I'm saying? I got some real mercenary operators getting down like Gray Fox that I train up and they do what I want them to do. And I say, I'll pay you to kill. And you won't get in trouble for it. I guarantee way more niggas than you think would show up. I don't have to go to the regular white man's military. Perfect. Mighty Whitey just don't understand. They should have been had segregated ranks. And the integrated units would have been the highest level dudes. So you don't even get to see other races of soldiers except for if you're like special forces, except for if you're part of like a special attachment or something like that, you know, or you're on a QRF or you're on a expeditionary expeditionary force or expeditionary brigade or expeditionary unit. You know what I mean? Anyway, let's keep going. On the equipment front, field reporters suggest that Russian invasion force currently possesses 4,780 barrel artillery pieces, more than 1,100 multiple launch rocket system, 2,000 main battle tanks, and 7,000 armored vehicles. It also operates 290 rotary wing and 310 fixed wing aircraft, meaning some of the wings move, some of the wings are stiff. I don't know why I have to explain that, but let me explain that. Thus, even according to the mainstream Western assessments, Russia has combat deployed an invasion force in Ukraine that outnumbers most standing NATO militaries. Russia has combat deployed an invasion force in Ukraine that outnumbers most standing NATO militaries. So I think that they didn't want to put that combined word in there, but that word combined probably should have been put in there. Most places don't focus on war. They don't want to. War is not healthy for the economy. Right on? It's really not. It's actually bad for your economy. Because the money goes to only so many groups. People get rich off of war, but only so many people. In a system where you're not at war, and there's free flowing goods, the idea that you're going to create more millionaires, 100,000aires, 10,000aires is just higher. It's just more likely. You see what I'm saying? It's just more likely. Assessing the Russian aerospace forces. The Russian aerospace forces, VKS, have both notable strengths and glaring weaknesses. Russia's successful 2015 air campaign and the Syrian civil war led many Western analysts to overestimate the potencies of Russia's aerial capabilities. Notably, Moscow's adversaries in Syria had no credible mid to high altitude air defenses or air to air combat capabilities. In fact, the Kremlin's efforts in Syria revealed the weakness of Russian air power. What? Ain't this about a bitch? In the opening stages of the campaign, the VKS deployed mostly Su 25 attack aircraft, Su 34 fighter bombers, and Su 24 frontline bombers from the Russian base in Syria. Khmeimim? Khmeimim. That's what I'm going to call it. Khmeimim. Of these aircraft, the 24M delivered most salvos. often indiscriminate attacks on strategic targets in urban areas. Unguided munitions accounted for 80% of Russia's strikes. Thus, whatever successes Russia achieved in Syria were not because of advanced warfare capabilities. A stark contrast to how NATO's Operation Allied Force used high-tech air power to win in the Balkans in 1999. Stop right there. That means that they have better pilots. The Russians clearly have better pilots. If they used lower tech and got the same damn conclusion you did using this high-tech shit, and they used some low-tech stuff back in 2015, literally 16 years after you guys are talking about high-tech, stop it, bro. Stop it. So bring some of your high-tech shit into Russia and get it shot down there. It's just so unbelievable that these dudes are propagandists as opposed to being outright objective analysts. If you feel a certain type of way, it should say there should be sections in the article where there's objective information and then you just share your unfettered opinion. Right on? Fine. Anyway, let's keep going. As the last few years have shown, the armed forces of Russian Federation struggle to adapt to crowded and complicated battle spaces and joint operations. No, stop right there. They don't struggle. They're trying to find ways on not killing hella civilians. Whereas the US and everybody else just don't give a fuck. Right. That's the difference. Which were caused, excuse me, Russia writings assessing the 2008 war in Georgia highlight unexpected aircraft losses from friendly fire incidents, which were caused by command and control failures and a lack of deconfliction among the Russian Air Force and a lack of deconfliction among the Russian Air Force and local ground forces and Russian air defenses. Stop right there. Is it possible just to believe that some of these dudes was shooting down dudes who they thought was dropping bombs on motherfuckers who they shouldn't have been dropping bombs on? There might have been some fratricide, like where they accidentally shot down their own dudes. But there's a lot of chances that if you're saying that there were there were the lack of deconfliction among the Russian Air Force, local ground forces, and Russian air defenses, stop right there. You're telling me that these dudes weren't communicating clearly? I'm thinking they were. I'm thinking you don't launch that incursion or that invasion into Georgia. I'm thinking that never happened unless these guys are clearly communicating first. So there were things that were going on. These are once again, like this just highlights what I was saying. Even if all of Russia and all these other groups all just converge together, there would still be people who are fighting against one another within these groups. That has to be accounted for. Now, you don't want it to be something that is detrimental to your survival or to your ability to making it, but you can't ever know. That's not for me or for you to know. Here we go. In the conflict, NATO aircraft face little threat from Russian tactical military aviation assets. Russian flanker baseline fighters are no match for Western capabilities in the air, especially with the proliferation of the fifth generation F 35s among NATO members. Other four and four and a half generation aircraft, such as the Eurofighter Typhoon and F 16, especially the latest F 16V variant, equipped with actively electronically scanned array ASA radar, would likely make quick work of the VKS, albeit with greater losses than squadrons of the fifth generation tactical military aviation assets. Stop right there. Stop right there. This is like trying to say that an M16 is better than an AK-47. And I'll give you a perfect example of what they're trying to say. So just in case you guys don't understand this, let me just give you a quick point of reference in history. The AK-47 is actually modeled after a German gun called the Sturmgewehr 44. Now, the weapon, the Sturmgewehr 44, was actually introduced in Hitler in 1941 or 1942, but he shot it down. Only years later would he accept the idea. Had he accepted the Sturmgewehr 44 in 1941 and it had been the STG 41 or STG 42, the Germans would have handedly won World War II without a question. That being said, the Germans, after the end of World War I, went into Russia and trained the Red Army. Much of the Red Army's understanding of combat comes from German troops. Back to modern day. They think that the M16 is better than the AK. And just head to head, it depends on what you're talking about. A fully functional, fully automatic M16A1 service rifle versus a fully functional, fully automatic AK-47 service rifle, combat rifle. The major difference is that one is bolt operated completely by the mechanisms and the pieces all work together. The other one is gas operated, even though it has a bolt carrier group, i.e. the M16 is gas operated. So it's almost like alien technology in a sense compared to it, but they still only do the same thing. I can get a 100-round drum for an M16 like I can for an AK. Right on? I can get a brass catcher or a brass retention device, as they call a shell catcher. I can get one of those for either device. Now, if you're talking about pure all-out accuracy, it has to go to the M16. If you're talking about all-out destructive power, it has to go to the AK-47. So which one do you want? Are you going to have the cognitive abilities to be accurate in the moment? Because all they have to do is hit you. Let's keep reading. Still, NATO faces 3 challenges in combating the Russian air threat. First, the Russian military succeeded in a limited land invasion. It would immediately establish surface-to-air missiles, or SAMs, coverage over any captured territory. In this scenario, NATO air power would need to fly intensive missions focused on the suppression and destruction of enemy air defenses. Seed, said, and dead. Listen, stop right there. Stop right there. Stop right there. They're saying then they would have to come in there and just try to bombard these dudes, relentless, to where they didn't have that anymore. So pretty much, if the Russians have competent air defenses, and because there was pilots who they said shot each other down. If it's not their own surface-to-air missiles shooting their people down, and they can distinguish who's who, do y'all realize those fights? Okay, yeah, you got a radar and all that shit, but you can only avoid so much incoming fire. So they got Sam's coming at you, and then he's firing his own shit at you. Okay, how much of this can you really avoid? How many of these little heat tracer markers that you got to where you can send them out, and then the missiles that are heat obligated, right on, heat sensory, they go into and go onto that. How many dummy decoy bombs do you have? Because they have those too, right on, where the SAM will shoot down what is essentially, it's not fake munitions, but it's meant for, they want you to shoot that down while they go and get to this other spot. Don't get it fucked up. We only put 3 good payloads. And the first 2 payloads we wanted y'all to shoot down. They were defunct anyway. When y'all be hearing stories about like unexploded mortars and artillery rounds and there's any kind of ordnance that didn't explode, a lot of that shit was made in the manufacturer, and the dudes who sent it out on the assembly line knew that shit might not work. This is a fact. Second, Russians' electronic warfare (EW) capabilities could interfere with NATO communications and sensor network. EW activity could harm NATO's operational and enablers and force multipliers, from high altitude drones to airborne early warning and control (AEW and C) aircraft. Thus, NATO would need to dominate the electromagnetic spectrum from the outset of the conflict. Stop right there. So you're already not doing that. So they would have to. So pretty much, in order to fight against Russia, it has to be a complete fucking blackout. Do y'all hear what I'm saying? The major grid shutdown is coming. It's the only way. It's the only way. And hand battery operated shit is going to be how they use stuff. They're going to have a bunch of massive generators, how they're able to charge things back. I already visualize it. I see it happen. Just like I visualize these niggas doing what they're doing to Ukraine. Anyway, just like I visualized them killing hundreds of thousands of Palestinians before it even happened. Spoke on it. I spoke on it. I tried to speak life on the Palestinians. I wanted for Bibi to stop doing it on May 14th. But I remember what I said though. If Yahya Sinwar doesn't surrender himself, don't stop bombing these niggas. And I meant that. And I meant that. And I meant that wholeheartedly. Straight up. You got dudes like that dude Scott Ritter saying that the attack that Hamas did on Israel is the most successful. No, it's not. No, it's not, because they didn't stay there. They didn't stay and establish nothing. They didn't establish no motherfucking forward operating bases or nothing. Right on? And had they done that, Hezbollah and all those other dudes would have been way more obligated to doing way more right off from the onset. It would have been like a literal attack on Israel. That's not what happened. So I can't big up nobody for doing something that any coward motherfucker can do. Are you supposed to say, that was so just because you successfully ambushed somebody, let's say at their birthday party, right? Are we supposed to give you big ups for that? You didn't have to kill them on the battlefield like these Russians and Ukrainians have been doing to one another. Like they're really meeting it out on the battlefield, and in some cases are close enough to see these dudes and they're laying them down. It's way different. Right. The drone, I cannot. You hear this dude talking about the electromagnetic spectrum? Stop it. Stop it. They're talking about being able to drone these dudes up and everything. Shutting down all the. So they want to be able to dominate. You hear that? NATO would need to dominate. That's how they feel about the Russians. Third, the Russian mixed strike packages feature drone and missile assets similar to what Iran has used in the Middle East, would pressure NATO's air and missile defenses. The offensive dominant nature of sophisticated joint drone and missile attack strike operations and missile strike operations means that NATO militaries should acquire large numbers of defense weapon systems coupled with sufficient quantities of long-range counter-offensive deterrence to target Russian launch positions, both preventively and in retaliation. So you're going to take preemptive measures. So you're just going to attack them. So it's okay if you attack them, but if they attack you, it's not okay. The Army Tactical Missile System, ATACMS, and the Joint Air-to-Surface Standoff Missile Extended Range, JASSM-ER, are two such systems. So who do you think makes those systems? So if the U.S. is totally boggled down, can they get all that shit to anybody? Probably not. Despite these three threats, combat in Ukraine has exposed the most serious weakness of the VKSs, its lack of high-tech kill chains and precision-guided munitions. It remains to be seen if China will supply Russia with these advanced sensor suites, precision-guided munitions, and targeting pods and aerial missiles that would enhance Moscow's capabilities. The technology is no good. So the thing is, in a real-life fight, Those munitions that are supposed to be guided by systems or whatever, do they still work on their own? Can they be manually fired? And if not, they're totally fucking useless. And that's where Moscow or whoever would win. That's how they win that battle. So you're hoping, depending on witchcraft, the highest levels of witchcraft to save you, or the highest levels we know. And you're saying that they're low tech witchcraft, that they're more advanced than most basic crude witchcraft, but still not the highest level witchcraft is not fucking with our witchcraft. And I'm like, okay, cool. But their witchcraft still works. And if they render your shit moot and useless, it's over. The Kremlin did not plan. Oh, stop it. An emerging coalition threatens NATO. Uh-oh. The Kremlin did not plan for a long war in Ukraine. Maybe they said that, but actually they did. The Russian intelligence community deeply flawed intelligence preparation of the battlefield, IBP, misled military planners and convinced Moscow that a full-scale invasion would be a larger-scale reenactment of the 2014 takeover of Crimea. That the war is now in its third year has had huge consequences for the Russian Federation. Perhaps most notably, the Kremlin increasingly relies upon Iran, North Korea, and China to field critically military capabilities a long war requires. So we're not going to talk about how Ukraine is literally dependent, is like a fucking welfare state. Like I was talking to my brother Andre the other day, and I said, Ukraine is like that child that everybody's taking to, football practice or to their sports. They're the child that everybody, not their own parents, are taking, and they're not taking themselves. They don't have the cognitive ability and wherewithal to navigate themselves safely. Not only that, but it might just be out of reach. So all these other groups, Germany, France, the whole EU, all of NATO virtually, and the US. Right. They're what thank you. That's the point I'm trying to make. They can't say these things about Russia needing its homies to kick in. So listen, in critical military capabilities a long war requires, minus all the aid that Ukraine has gotten, subtract it all. Did they have the abilities to fight this war for more than a month? Be honest. Be honest with yourself. If they don't get a scintilla, a modicum, an iota of American dollars, do they have the ability to fight this war? I wish Putin would just hit these motherfuckers with a weapon that was not exactly a nuke, but nuke-like. Where they're like, God damn, he using shit like that? Yeah. I told you, bitch ass niggas, if you cross this red line, this is what the fuck is happening. They're lucky I'm not on the Russian defense, because all life on Earth would be in peril fucking with me. Because all this saber rattling shit, I don't get down like that. I really don't. If you've ever been in a position where you were about to kill somebody and just left, you just walked away and left, you understand what I'm talking about. Like, I'm about to make the decision to take their life. I'm just going to leave. You feel me? Right. That's me. I'll make the decision to leave and not kill a motherfucker. All in the same breath. If you're doing shit that means you need to get touched, I'm AT&T style. Nigga, you are getting touched. I don't give a fuck about none of that. And like I said, they're blessed and highly favored to not have a nigga like me in the ranks. Cause this shit would have been popped off. Whatever you niggas think popped off is, whatever y'all think the Iraq war was, nothing compared to the shit that's going on up here, nigga. I would have had it pop the fuck off. Either the whole earth is like sandpaper and glass, nigga, or somebody took over and really won. That's it. All this bullshit that they do, all this, I can't wait till somebody conjure up some shit they can't control. I can't wait. I hope they in the lab cutting chicken heads off and goat heads off and doing weird seances. I'm praying they are doing it. I'm praying for it. I'm praying they're doing a bunch of occult fuckery. I want them to do it. I want them to take the white gloves off and get this shit lit. You niggas is scared. That's why you don't talk like that. I want to see it get all the way lit. You talking about reparations, nigga? I'll gladly walk away with my reparations, cuz I won't have to take nothing. It won't belong to anybody because they'll probably more than likely be dead. The same way you get something is the same way you lose it, people. If you get it the slow hard way, you probably lose it the slow hard way. If you get it fast and loose, you'll probably lose it fast and loose. But every once in a while, you work long, you work hard, and it's the slow grind. And you know what happens? You hit a little overnight success. Okay? A little overnight success. You know, overnight success is like the equivalent to Abraham getting circumcised, getting rid of the medical condition that he had, which was hardened skin around the tip of his penis because he was uncircumcised, therefore increasing the flow of his seed and enabling him to impregnate his wife. And because circumcision was not a common practice at all, and he's the first man that I know to ever be circumcised, I can conclude that many people other than Abraham had that similar condition. Neither here nor there. Let's keep going. To understand the Russian defense industry, one should start with the 90-90 formula. Moscow imports 90% of its machinery tools, of which military producers purchase 90%. Did you hear that? 90% of what they import of the machinery tools, military producers get 90%. So really, there's a 20% outlie. Can you hear me? There's a 10 plus 10, so there's a 20% outlier of non-military machinery. The rest of it, for example, Rostec, Russia's largest military producer of military equipment, purchased 80% of all cutting machines in the country even before the 2014 invasion of Crimea. With the full-scale invasion of Ukraine, the conglomerate devotes almost all of its machinery to military industries. The machinery sector, in turn, directly impacts Russia's missile production. Missiles are indispensable components of what Russian theorists call non-contact warfare, or I can't pronounce that, Viskontaknanya Vonya, under the Russian theory of sixth-generation warfare. Modern missile proliferation requires a continuous flow of microelectronics, and global smuggling networks help Moscow maintain access to this Western technology. Furthermore, for years, the Kremlin has operated a range of front and shell companies and fraudulent end user licenses to procure illicit components from Europe and the Americas. Hong Kong is a critical hub for Russian microelectronic supply networks. With Western sanctions become more restrictive, China has become a key supplier of advanced weapon system components such as machine tools, ball bearings, and semiconductors. Custom data shows that Beijing has supplied Moscow with over $300 million worth of dual use items, which can be used to manufacture various weapons each month. In 2023 alone, China accounted for 90% of Russian imports of goods that fall under the group of seven high priority export control lists. For decades, Russian defense technological and industrial base, DTIB, like the country's other industries, had depended on foreign supplies to maintain machine tools. Since Russia's invasion of Ukraine, machine tools alone have accounted for almost 40% of the annual rise in Chinese dual use exports, even according to Chinese dubious official statistics. Moreover, why do the Chinese have to be dubious? Why do you have to think that these guys in Russia are exaggerating? Why is there no exaggeration by America? Even if you're working for an American institute, it's clearly propaganda. But I got to read this to y'all because you guys got to get this information to understand they're about to take the fucking white gloves off. How many of y'all are working in defense contractor companies? Huh? How many of y'all been offered jobs to do that kind of stuff? All my IT brothers out there, all my electrician brothers out there, all my technician brothers out there. Huh? How many times have you been up? How many times has the military come to your job and said, we need you guys to do certain contracts for us? Maybe you wouldn't know if they came there because maybe it's on the hush hush. But if it wasn't on the hush hush, how many of y'all know about said contracts? This is what I'm talking about. These dudes are ready to fucking go to war right now. And they already have their troops here. They already have troops here. They already have people here. Yeah, you can't win a war with 10 people, but they can help win a part of a war. Especially if all 10 of their lives, even if we lose all 10 of their lives, if they accomplish the mission they were on, it doesn't matter. And so long as there's no counter mission available and within a reach to be achieved, mission accomplished. But here we go. Moreover, commercially available drones like Chinese DJI quadcopters have performed critical military tasks for Russia's combat formations, ranging from intelligence, surveillance, target acquisitions, and reconnaissance. Ishtar. Mm. Y'all know what Ishtar is, right? You know, Ashtar. You know, the goddess of damn fertility, so called. Note that these dudes try to name anything that they can after anything like that because they're a bunch of heathens. Missions. Whoa, 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 whoa. Let me read that again. Moreover, commercially available drones like Chinese DJI quadcopters have performed critical military tasks for Russian combat formations, ranging from intelligence, surveillance, target acquisition, and reconnaissance. Missions to spot artillery strikes, conduct battle damage assessments, and following large scale salvos. Excuse me, conduct battle damage assessments following large scale salvos. Now, stop right there. What they're saying is, as opposed to sending in a person to go do this shit, we just send in the robot like everybody else does. But these dudes are no different than anyway. What's the difference between this and a person making a diamond float over something and they see everything through the diamond? Right on? What's the difference? China's growing exports to Russia of nitrocellulose, a dual use material needed to produce ammunition, are another important issue. Beijing exported slightly over 700 tons of nitrocellulose to Russia in 2022, but in 2023, it provided Russia with over 1,300 tons of the material. They doubled up. So they needed nitrocellulose, right on. I'm thinking that's a fatty form of the nitrous, right on. It's probably used as an accelerant and yet as a fuel source or something like that, you know, which makes it a dual use. Iran is another critical member of the Axis challenging NATO. The axis of resistance, baby. Russia has launched Iran supplied Shahid baseline loitering munitions in strike packages, along a variety of other offensive weapons, including hypersonic aeroballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and ballistic missiles. Iranian loitering munitions have been tested against a wide array of defensive assets, including the Ukrainian military's Western and Soviet area SAM systems and EW tools. By early 2023, nearly 60% of Russian strike packages featured Iranian drones. So we're going to look at this stuff between April and June 2023. Air-launched cruise missiles, the Shahid, 58%, 2% on the Ixlander, 1%, 8% on the S3 and 400, 1% on the K-47 Kinzhal, 3% on the K-22/43, 1% on the ground-launched cruise missile, 4% on sea-launched cruise missile. So this is how these guys support one another, through and through and through. You see how they're buying all this stuff from one another, right? Now, don't think that there's not an American weapons seller who wouldn't be willing to sell these guys some American weapons. That's not the issue. The issue is they're supporting one another because they understand. But I told y'all already, the return of the Khan, baby. So is it by chance or by coincidence that the Ilkhanate, the old Ilkhanate, still works together? Russia is pounding Ukraine with a diverse array of Shaheeds, including the Shahed 238 jet power variant and Shahed 136 variant that comes equipped with the tungsten balls and fragmented shrapnel warheads. That's nasty. A Shahed 136 variant with the thermobaric warhead and newer Shahed featuring special coatings that decrease the drone's radar signatures. They have lead coatings, probably lead and aluminum coatings, I would think. They have to be heavy enough to at least block out some of the signal, but light enough to where the drone can still operate. Some cases, they might even be using some kind of complicated carbon fiber coated with either one of those or underlined with it. So that way it still has lightweight and it still has the blockage. I don't want to get carried away into what I think they're doing. I'm just using my imagination. Recently, a more advanced Iranian loitering munitions type, the RIC baseline, made it to the front lines. Apart from drones, Iran has also supplied Russia with tactical ballistic missiles derived from Tehran's Fateh 110 model. North Korea is also a critical supplier of the Russian war machine. Pyongyang, which has provided Moscow with a multitude of artillery shells and ballistic missiles, is estimated to have shipped thousands of containers to Russia since Putin's summit with North Korea leader Kim Jong-un in September 2023. Together, those containers can accommodate 500,000 122 millimeter class rockets or 3 million 152 millimeter Soviet era artillery shells. South Korean intelligence reports that Pyongyang has ramped up its defense industry's activity in order to supply Russia's invasion. Stop right there. No, it should say in order to stymie sanctions from America. Notice all the countries that might be cool with Russia, that don't have to sell them weapons, don't have sanctions on them. And all the countries that are selling weapons to one another and support to one another are all fucking sanctioned. I'm not Russian. I'm not Chinese. I'm not none of that shit. Y'all know I don't give a damn about no Mongoloids or none of that. Like they don't give a damn about me. But nigga, I'm not with the bullshit. And that's bullshit. That what they're doing to them is bullshit. So you can subvert me and fucking undermine my shit and oppress me and suppress me. But the moment I even speak out on it, it means death. Even though you've been delivering death the whole time. Man, fuck that. Analyzing changes in Russia's doctrinal order of battle. Russia's Western military district. Clearly, this is over 30 minutes. Clearly, this is about Russia and everybody else. This is a RIC video. This is RIC, y'all. I had to get a .org on y'all again, so that way niggas couldn't tell me I was tripping. Analyzing changes in Russia's doctrinal order of battle. Russia's Western Military District, WND, long formed the backbone of the country's NATO-facing forces. The WMD included the 1st Guard Tank Army, 6th and 20th Combined Arms Armies, the 6th Air and Air Defense Army, the Baltic Fleet, and the 11th Corps Armies. A robust force of airborne troops, VDV, comprising 1 air assault and 2 airborne divisions, supported by the WMD. But in early 2024, in response to Finland's accession to NATO, Putin ordered the reestablishment of the Leningrad and Moscow military districts, replacing the WMD. Simultaneously, the Southern Military District was expanded to include occupied Ukrainian territory, while the North Fleet lost its status as an independent military district. The formation of the Leningrad Military District, which will coordinate the Northern Fleet's ground combat formations, signals the Kremlin's strategic intentions to muscle up for potential operations in the Baltic theater. Taking off the white gloves. They need to see how effective some of this shit is versus whoever first. So when they really go all out, we're going to use these weapons against these guys. Yeah, this shit is high tech versus low. We got high tech versus high tech, low tech versus high tech, and our high tech versus their not so high tech, right on? They're mid tech, whatever. They're smart. You're going to bet $1,000 and I'm going to bet 25. Now you might win 1,000 back, but you might lose 1,000 to this 25 that I'm putting up. Are you willing to do that? Are you really willing to do that? Are you willing to put $1,000 versus $25? If so, let's gamble. And vice versa. If I'm willing to put up this 1,000 and you putting up 25, and I'm like, you don't see the pattern? The pattern says this is a good hand. We ain't bet no fucking bonuses. We going straight for the hand. We want a straight win. That's where we're at, y'all. I'm not saying it. This nigga said. Ground combat formations signal the Kremlin's strategic intentions to muscle up for potential operations in the Baltic theater. Muscle up is the word this motherfucker used. He didn't say ready up. He didn't say gear up. He said muscle up. Don't know what it means to muscle up on somebody. Stop it. If y'all ain't a certain age, you don't get it. Right on? If you're only like 12 or something and you found this YouTube video, first off, YouTube, I'm going to get on your ass. But, because none of my shit is made for children. But if you on this page right now and you're a grown-up, and you have heard somebody say, I muscled up on them, or they tried to muscle up on me, we all know what the fuck that means. So again, this dude is painting a certain picture. Why? Why? Does America not muscle up by sending destroyers and fucking cruisers and all kinds of shit to motherfuckers, bro? Right on? Word? We'll fucking just send a battalion of shit to you. Battalions of them. A whole fleet of some shit. And posture up and let our troops come up in there and run through the women, drink up all the liquor that you don't have, or bring liquor off board that we enlist. Straight taint the land, run through the brothels, everything. We'd have just buffaloed the town, right? That's what they let happen. They get mad. Geographically, the bulk of NATO's military prowess, save for Poland and Turkey, is based in Western Europe and North America. And Turkey is on whose side, you think? You think Turkey is on America's side in the end? Stop it. They're part of the Il Khanate. Shh. While U.S. European Command deployed some combat formations to NATO's east after Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the alliance's center of gravity is still in the west. Moreover, the Baltic states' sole land connection to the rest of NATO allied group and the Suwalki Gap, a narrow corridor sandwiched between the Russian Oblast of Kaliningrad, and Belarus. Should the Russian military block the Suwalki Gap and establish a link between Belarus and Kaliningrad, the Baltic states would be geographically isolated from their NATO allies. This would greatly complicate NATO's ability to introduce reinforcements, maintain supply routes, and deploy follow-on forces in the event of hostilities. Now y'all are understanding why they're so mad at Belarus. Now you're understanding why they got mad that Belarus did what they did and stood with motherfucking, because they're like, fuck that. Belarus is like, we're not gonna let all these motherfuckers up in here. You're not gonna use our shit as a fucking jump off. Because that's what that is. Right, that's the jump off. So you're not using our shit as a jump off. Fuck you. Right. Naturally. That only makes sense. Now, let's keep reading. This would greatly no. Keep going. The Baltic states can draw critical lessons from Russia's 2008 of Georgia. Russia's 2008 invasion of Georgia. By August 2008, the Georgian armed forces, due to then President Mikhail Saakashvili's ambitious reform program and Tbilisis, I think that's right. Tbilisi's growing ties with NATO member states had become a small but credible force of 22,000 fighters. It boasted 5 infantry brigades with more than 3,000 personnel each, one artillery brigade, and 1 engineer brigade, and 6 independent battalions, including 1 tank battalion with 2 dozens of T-72 variants. The Georgian Army of 2008 was a stronger fighting force than those of the Baltic states of 2024. Wow! Did y'all hear that? Unless this nigga's lying, straight capping out the front of his teeth. I need to read that to y'all again. By August 2008, the Georgian armed forces, due to then President Mikhail Saakashvili's ambitious reform and program and Tbilisi's growing ties with NATO, with NATO member states, had become a small but credible force of 22,000 fighters. Stop right there. It boasted 5 infantry brigades with more than 3,000 personnel each, 1 artillery brigade, 1 engineer brigade, and 6 independent battalions, including 1 tank battalion with dozens of T-72 variants. The Georgian Army of 2008, of 16 years ago, was a stronger fighting force than those of the Baltic states of 2024. So, Yugoslavia, Albania, right? Lithuania, Latvia. You see what I'm saying? Right. I'm just going to name a few for sure Baltic places. Balkan. I get it. Them niggas ain't got nobody. Russia's military is also stronger today than it was in 2008. And the land component of the Kremlin's military presence in Kaliningrad is significantly more menacing. The exclave's 11th Army Corps and reportedly at least 1 battalion of the 336 Guards Naval Infantry Brigade have fought in Ukraine. Nonetheless, Russian missile forces, VKS elements, and naval assets in Kaliningrad remain mostly intact. This is important to note because naval warfare in the Baltic Sea presents a tricky military calculus. In force-on-force comparisons, the Russian Navy does not have a clear advantage. Long-range strike capabilities, however, could favor the Kremlin. Additionally, although Baltic Sea's shallow depths restrict the types of submarines that could be employed successfully in combat operations, the submarine threat cannot be neglected. The Baltic Sea's seasonal ice over layered waters, variable depths, and copious noise make a suitable hiding spot for smaller submarines. Previous studies found important shortcomings in NATO's anti-submarine capabilities in the Baltics, probably because they got a bunch of this shit sunk. Although these studies were done years before Swedish and Finnish accession to NATO. Should war come to the Baltic, Gotland, a geopolitically critical Swedish island in the Baltic Sea, could become a flashpoint. Should war come to the Baltic, Gotland, geopolitically critical Swedish island in the Baltic Sea, could become a flashpoint. War games following the Russian invasion of Crimea in 2014 suggested that Gotland could play a vital role in regional combat operations. In one scenario, a move against the island preceded that the main Russian military effort against the Baltic states. If the Kremlin deploys anti-access area denial A2AD systems in Gotland, which is not far from Kaliningrad, supplying NATO and Baltic state militaries might prove risky and highly attritional. Meaning, they're not gonna do it. Meaning, you niggas are on your own, and we'll fucking whatever little bit we can get in, and that's when dudes start celebrating small victories. This is why Ukraine is celebrating a small victory right now. This so-called incursion and the spot that they left lightly guarded, because they wanted to see, is the West this desperate? Putin only acting outraged. They thought the West was going to attack this shit last year on the offensive. They didn't, and they did it this year on the offensive. Putin ain't mad. He has to act outraged and act surprised and all that shit. But he already knew what the fuck was coming before it happened. Right. How else do you know what's coming? He already knew. Man was like, whatever. Let these bums do whatever they're going to do. Another critical flashpoint to monitor is Svalbard, a Norwegian archipelago hundreds of miles away from mainland Norway, with few residents, one-fifth of whom are Russian. What? With one-fifth. With few residents, one-fifth, 20% of whom are Russian. The island chain has been demilitarized for decades under the terms of the 1920 Svalbard Treaty. NATO members have been politically divided on how to react if Russia tests Allied resolve in Svalbard. This unity all but encourages the Kremlin's hostile machinations. So they're trying to say that because there's no that none of them feel a certain, because they want to run the Russians off, is what they're saying. Right. But that would be seen as a hostility. But America's like, fuck that. You see what I'm saying? This is the kind of shit that I'm talking about, y'all. Like, you cannot ever think that these dudes are on the right side of anything. They're the devil. They are the devil. Okay, let's go ahead and keep it popping, keep it reading. Since 2005, the Russian military has ramped up its activity in European Arctic. Here, Svalbard looms large as it falls within Russian Northern Fleet's area of interest. Since the Russian invasion of Ukraine, the archipelago has been a crux of tensions between Norway and Russia. No fucking shit. And you guys wonder why Norway was like, we want to be part of NATO now, because these guys might do some shit. But it's like, y'all can't take on the Russians there? See, you see what I'm saying? You see how even if they expel the Russians who live there, that would give the Russian government reason to take action. They understand it. That microaggression would become a macroaggression, which would just become a regular aggression. Now we have a problem. Now here we go. Nuclear shielding, Belarus, and tactical nukes. Nuclear capabilities underlie any consideration of potential conflict between Russia and NATO. Two considerations inform Russia's nuclear calculus in the event of war against NATO. The first is nuclear shielding, which is when a nation hides behind its nuclear arsenal to pursue conventional aggression. Since the outset of its full-scale invasion of Ukraine, the Kremlin has placed the Russian military on a nuclear war footing to threaten the West. Just days after the invasion, Putin placed Russia's strategic forces on high combat alert. In October 2023, Russia drilled its nuclear warning system, conducting a war game centered on highly destructive strategic level nuclear exchange. Russia then deployed tactical nuclear assets to Belarus. In 2023, Sergei Karaganov, the head of Russia's Council on Foreign and Defense Policy, penned an article calling for a preemptive nuclear strike against NATO territory in Europe to halt the alliance's support of Ukrainian military. Dmitry Tinin, a once prominent Russian studies expert in the West, and now a staunch supporter of the invasion of Ukraine, has openly endorsed the idea. There can be no doubt Russia engages in nuclear saber rattling to deter NATO. I wish my nigga Putin would take these fucking white gloves off and just be like, somebody did that on their own and we killed them. Right on, we offer this motherfucker up on the altar of sacrifice type of shit. Just to be like, oh, they got nuked, my bad. Japan's just fine. Japan's thriving. They'll be okay. That would be my logic if I nuke somebody. Japan's doing okay. They'll be all right. The use of tactical nuclear weapons, a contingency the Western strategic community often underestimates, is the second major consideration that informs Moscow's nuclear calculus. Russia possesses both a larger and greater variety of tactical nukes than NATO, and the Russian military recently drilled tactical nuclear options in collaboration with Belarus. Stop right there. Before me, before Demetrius Antoine Jones, all my niggas on YouTube, how many nigga YouTubers did you ever hear use the term tactical nukes? Fuck it. How many white YouTubers before me did you ever hear talk about tactical nukes? I'm one of a few. I am literally one of a few. FBI can't fuck with me. NSA can't fuck with me. I ain't did nothing to nobody. They mad because I say shit that they don't like. But the shit I'm saying that they don't like is the attitude that they exude every day. So don't get mad because you're part of the fucking problem and you refuse to leave where you're at to not be part of it. By the end of 2023, Belarusian strongman Alexander Lukashenko announced that Moscow had completed the deployment of nuclear weapons to his nation. Russian news stories confirm that Belarus-based Iskander M tactical ballistic missiles are capable of conducting nuclear strikes, along with Iskanders. SU-25 attack aircraft and SU-24 frontline bombers form Russia's forward-deployed tactical nuclear delivery forces in Belarus. Moreover, Minsk has also been hosting Russian MiG-31K interceptor aircraft, certified to carry nuclear-capable Kinzhal hypersonic missiles, the aeroballistic variant of the Iskander baseline. As NATO's 2023 Vilnius summit communique implies the presence of pro-Kremlin Wagner private military company in Belarus has become a security challenge for Europe and looms large in Poland's national defense plans. Even after former Wagner leader Yevgeny Prigozhin's botched mutiny, a small contingent of Wagner contractors stayed in Belarus to train that country's military. In the coming years, the Russian armed forces will likely subsume their Belarusian counterparts. In light of Russia's invasion of Ukraine and its officially announced deployment of tactical nuclear weapons to Belarus, NATO member states should abandon the 1997 NATO-Russian Founding Act and extend the alliance's nuclear burden sharing to its easternmost nations. Poland could take the lead. So they want Poland to get fucked up first. They want the Polacks to get their ass whooped. Extending Allied burden sharing eastward would boost the West's tactical nuclear posture against the Kremlin's escalatory saber rattling. Now, My people, before I read another word, do y'all understand when I said that the reason why they did not want Ukraine to become a part of NATO was so that way NATO could not position tactical nukes on the border of Russia? Is anybody gonna fucking argue against me? Nigga, I need to be loved for this shit, nigga, because I know right now Putin and them niggas is taking notes. I'm giving them notes on the notes they already got. Right on? America's taking notes. I give these niggas notes on the shit they already got. They don't even think about it like this. They got a bunch of fucking eggheads who literally spend no time on the ground. They only analyze information. They never get out there and deal with people. It's different. Rather than permanent basing, certifying the forthcoming F-35As intended for Poland, the B-61 tactical nuclear bomb delivers would safeguard Polish air bases from being high priority targets of Russian missile salvos. No, it wouldn't. It would make them first priority targets. It would make it to where Russia's like, fuck it. Fuck you niggas. Let's pop it off. That's how stupid these dudes are. But the real Polacks are like, cuz don't bring that shit here. We was doing just fine. I don't even know why we wanted to be in NATO. Stupid that they let some young punks talk them into for sure death. If anything happens, Poland's gonna get wiped out this time. Wiped all the fuck way off the map. Y'all talk about them turning the Middle East into glass and all that shit. Don't worry, they can turn Europe into glass too, nigga. What Moscow's weak spot? What happened in Chechnya still haunts the Russian military. Decades later, Russia's war in Chechnya during the 1990s still informed the Kremlin's military, the Kremlin's military planning. Flawed pre-war intelligence assessments hamstrung Russians prior to their 1994 into the Chechen capital of Grozny, much like they did in Russia's 2022 foray toward the Ukrainian capital of Kyiv. In December 1994, now people don't want to talk about the fucking Muslim terrorists that were coming out of Chechnya doing stupid ass shit. Fuck it. I'm not even going to talk about it. I'll leave it alone. Right on? They were forced to go into Chechnya. Not about to let you niggas keep blowing shit up and fucking putting bombs everywhere. And fuck that. You dirty ass little Mongol terrorist. We got you. No, this is why the Russians hate Caucasians. Look it up if you don't believe me. The Russians hate Caucasians. Hate them. In December of 1994, Russian servicemen entering Grozny were not briefed about the prospect of hard fighting there. Why would you not think there would be hard fighting? You're a fucking infantryman. See, dude, they were fucking probably given shitty ass info, probably some double fucking agent information saying that there wouldn't be almost any fighting. Motherfuckers would just give up. So when they got there, they didn't think there was going to be much, and dudes probably let their guard down. Shh, we'll never know. Moscow calculated that Chechen forces organized during the collapse of the Soviet Empire by Zhatkar Dudayev, a dissident Air Force general pursuing independence for his nation, were a hodgepodge rebel band. Russian military planners assumed that the mere presence of tanks on Chechen streets would squelch the uprising. Instead, the campaign ended with a Chechen victory. No. What it ended with is the Russians leaving and them terrorist motherfuckers understanding if you keep coming back, who do you think were coming down from the Caucasus Mountains doing the dumb shit in the early 2000s? Who do you think was doing that weird shit? The Chechens and all these other sub-Russian groups or wanna be so-called. We want to be like Russia, but we're not really Russians, right on? Because we're more Mongoloid Turks than we are Franco Turks, neither here nor there, or even Franc Mongoloids or Mongoloid Francs. It all just depends on the bloodline. The Kremlin's reviews of the defeat emphasizes three faults: inadequate training at the unit and individual levels, poor logistics that hampered large-scale operational deployment, and insufficient planning at the leadership level. So meaning somebody gave y'all some shitty ass intel. Y'all thought it was a fucking cakewalk. You went in there like it was a cakewalk, and it wasn't a cakewalk. These failures still haunt the Russian military and offer critical lessons for NATO leaders as they plan for the possibility of war with Moscow. So you guys think you're gonna get lucky like the Chechens? Wow, this shit is fucking NATO, dude. NATO leaders need to be bitch slapped. Every last one of them needs to have my hand across their face. Right on? And then I need to be paid to do it by every single one of them. Right on? So I can, they need to pay me to slap some fucking sense into them. Because, nigga, this shit is crazy. Are you hearing this? They're hoping on some 1994 Chechnya fucking. The dude used to be a Russian Air Force general. So he understood what was going to happen. He positioned the dudes to look like it was all a bunch of military fighters. The same shit that Hamas is doing. But Russia is not like Israel and the US. They didn't just fucking say, you know what, fuck these niggas, cuz fuck this whole country, turn this bitch into glass. They could have. But America supported the Chechnyan rebels. Did they not? Part two, mapping NATO's requirement for a robust military posture. At the 2014 Wales Summit, NATO leaders agreed to implement a readiness action plan to rapidly respond to new security challenges presented by Russia's seizure of Crimea. At the 2016 Warsaw Summit, alliance leaders introduced enhanced forward presence of a forward deployed military force to bolster the eastern part of the alliance alongside a tailored forward presence of Southern Europe in July 27, excuse me, in Southern Europe. In July 2017, implementing decisions made in Warsaw, NATO deployed multinational battle groups to Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and Poland. Following Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, NATO further boosted its strategic posture on the eastern edge, for the first time deploying high-readiness elements in the NATO response force for deterrence and defense roles. At its 2022 Brussels summits, alliance leaders agreed to establish 4 additional multinational battle groups in Bulgaria, Hungary, Romania, and Slovakia. Subsequently, at its 2022 Madrid summit, NATO finally agreed to scale up its forward deployed battalion sized groups to brigade level where and when required. Subsequently, the alliance has replaced its response force with the new structure. NATO Force Model, NFM, which is larger but still has important gaps. Below are two main areas NATO needs to improve upon to reestablish superiority over the armed forces of the Russian Federation. Number one, they'll never be over them ever again. When they could have just, when Europe should have been all one Europe, right on, and they could have conjoined in on joint history and the shit that where they had separate history, looked over it or looked past it or looked through it. They didn't do that. Instead, they created a system and a cycle to where, what can they say, y'all? What can they say? What can they say to me and you? Right on? We're watching it happen. We're watching it with our 2 eyes before us. People lose their whole fucking minds. And they're telling us that we're tripping if we say something. Whatever. I mean, this is whatever. It's their life. It's their mind to think. I can't force them to think nothing. I don't give a damn. It don't matter. Vulnerability. 1. Defense industrial shortcomings. To understand the defense industrial deficiencies that worry NATO planners, remember they were talking about military readiness at the very beginning of this article. They had all this other bullshit. They had all this accountability and transparency on this other shit. But military readiness, it was an unknown. So, motherfucker, no matter what you say right now, you bitch ass nigga, I know it's an unknown. Let's keep reading. To understand the defense industrial deficiencies that worry NATO planners, analysts should focus on the mismatch between the alliance's military spending goals and achievements. The 2014 Allied Defense Investment Plan committed allied alliance member states to spending 2% of GDP on defense and 20% on their overall military budget on modernization programs. But in 2014, only 3 member states met these required state expenditure criteria. So in 2023, the Vilnius summit established the 2% benchmark as a bare minimum for allies to meet, a minimum that in 2024, 18 nations are expected to reach. Recently updated this expectation to 23 allied states. To 23 allied states. So how do we know that America's not just donating the money to these niggas and they're just putting it, you know what I'm saying? It's fucking bullshit. And that's what Trump was talking about. Was we're spending too much money. These guys aren't spending enough of their own money. Whoopty wop, whoopty wop. That's what he was talking about. Y'all starting to see America was putting the money up for these other nations as if they were spending on their military budgets and they really weren't. Right. So now they're fucked. Right. Because they never spent any money on their actual military shit. And Russia did. Russia is the only place, when we get done reading this, we're going to go back to military spending. That little thing that showed us from 1992, okay, to 2020. And you guys will understand, like, they're the only ones who did it. So let's just look at this right here. This is from 2014 to 2024. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't fucking matter. Defense expenditure, NATO group. Right on. 235 billion to 380 billion. Now you got to realize America could have fronted most of that money most years. 1.47 to 2%. So this is why America could only spend so much money on the military industrial complex. Because if you're spending hundreds of billions to try to bolster other groups who just cannot afford that, right? The money is not coming into their nation to spend it like that. There's no need for them to focus on that. But now they're looking at it like, shit, we should have, because now we're in a position where we need everybody else's help. Now they need the weapons from everybody else. Had you bought one of these, 2 of these, 10 of these surface to air missile systems, had you got one of these F fucking 16s or F-35s and just put the money down, you would not be in that same position. Because you got to train the people to use it. All that shit takes money. If it doesn't take money, it takes time and resource. You have to feed people. Like, you can't do nothing for somebody and expect them to fucking learn. That's impossible. There has to be something for them. So again, how's America telling these groups, dude, you come on, you think Estonia, you think Lithuania, you think Latvia, you think Poland, you think Sweden, you think any of those places have a strong enough economy to fucking purchase as much shit as Russia does? Do you think all the little Balkan, Eastern European fucking countries could fight against Russia? Of course not. So why would you encourage it? Anyway, man, it's just the dumbest shit I ever heard. But these niggas are retarded. It might appear that NATO's combined strength would overpower its adversaries. In fiscal year 2024, the U.S. will spend $841.4 billion on its defense, on Department of Defense, $32.4 billion on national security programs within the Department of Energy, and $438 million on other related activities in the National Defense Authorization Act. But the West challenges are greater than they appear to blush, and then they appear at first blush. Russia's invasion of Ukraine, spiraling conflict in the Middle East, and China's threat to Taiwan. Whoa, 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 whoa. Hating ass niggas. And China's threat to Taiwan illustrate that the peace dividend era is over. As United Kingdom's Defense Secretary noted, still, the West runs a defense industry built for peacetime. War games have shown that if a large-scale conflict were to erupt in Europe, the UK would exhaust its existing arsenal in a little over a week. Germany would be out of ammunition in a few days, or in a war with the quick operational tempo, a few hours. On the other hand, Russia's conventional military strength is ability to mass artillery firepower, field heavy armor, in large numbers wage EW or electronic warfare, engineer deep and layered defenses, continually replenish its fighting forces from a deep manpower pool, and field surface to air missiles systems against a given axis of advance. uh, Systems against a given axis of advance. The Russian military can fight grinding wars of attrition and weather mounting casualties. Most NATO militaries and defense industries are not designed to face such a threat. America would force black men to go over there and fight. Fucking bullshit. See, this is the shit I'm talking about. Like, why not just pay niggas $8 grand a month, $5 grand a month to just go there and do it now? In the war now. Right. Go get all the black mongoloids in America, all the black aboriginals, all the black natives. Go get a handful of, brought here nigs, because us who were brought here will make sure that we all get back. We ain't getting dead for no bullshit for the white man. Or them aboriginal nigs and them native nigs, they'll die for that shit. Not I. Not I. Not fucking I. Nope. Nope. Over the course of their war, Russia and Ukraine have exchanged on average 200,000 artillery rounds per week. Yet another union member, yet European Union member states aim to produce some 160,000 artillery rounds per month, amounting to 2 million rounds annually in 2025. So if these dudes, so listen to that. There every month there's roughly 800,000 artillery rounds being launched off. They're saying that and a quarter of the time it takes these dudes to make 160,000. They're making a literally 25%. They're using 25% more than these dudes can produce monthly in a week. Fuck out of here. The U.S. fares only slightly better. It produced 28,155 millimeter rounds per month in 2023. Washington aims to boost its manufacturing to 100,000 rounds per month or 1.2 million shells annually. But even this improved effort would not match Russia's production level. Worse, while political will is firm across NATO capitals, revitalizing post-Cold War defense industries is not a quick task. Germany's Rheinmetall, for example, will not be able to produce 1.1 million 155 millimeter artillery shells per year until 2027. Until when? 2027. So that's probably when they'll jump it off. That year I'll be talking about, right? I don't even know why they brought that year up, but I'm glad. And a promising step, the U.S. Department of Defense and the European Commission published their first defense industry strategies in 2024. The US and EU, however, have not strategically prioritized transatlantic defense industry capabilities. Many analysts suggest that both Washington and Brussels have tilted towards protectionism, a trend even more explicit in Europe, where member states are encouraged to procure from European industry, a practice that disadvantages American, British, and other non-EU suppliers. Mm. There are exceptions to this trend, most prominently Poland, which buys American and South Korean weapons. Yet it would be very hazardous for NATO if the European and US defense industries decided to go their separate ways. So you're hearing this right here. NATO's not even buying enough shit right now. They're not buying enough weapons. They're not spending what they're supposed to spend on the defense shit, y'all. America's just been giving this shit away. Right. And they can no longer afford to give it away. And Russia's in a position where they're producing. So even if you say that they're not producing what they produce, they're still producing more than America. Right. They're able to wage this war. And even if they're not producing all on their own, they're able to buy this shit. Right. So it doesn't fucking matter. They're trying to say that it's like, dude, America's finding out right now that you're fighting against Russia, Iran, China, North Korea. You can't fuck with them. You can't. Dude, the Ukrainians are down like 1 million men. At least 1 million men. They'll tell you it's something less than that. These niggas are down 1 million fucking men, y'all. That's crazy. Not just people, men. Irreparable damage to the male population. And you fuck whatever, man. Let me just keep reading. Vulnerability is number 2. At its 2022 Madrid summit, members agreed to transition the 40,000 strong NATO response force, NRF, into the NATO force model. The NATO force model's doctrinal order of battle, rooted in a 3-tiered system, force of generation, is designated to boost deterrence and defense capacity by generating a large manpower pool using rapid combat deployment. Under the new NFM, the alliance can generate 3 layers of deployment between 10 and 180 days from the initiation of hostilities, reducing the NRF's 15-day response by 5 days. So they're forcing people to go. Model deployment tiers. They're just going to force guys. So within a month, they could have 500,000 troops. At least they're saying. A month to half a year. 10 days later, they can have. It all just depends on the numbers of casualties you're taking. Once again, these dudes are all lying about how many people are getting killed. Why would you join a fighting force where you're not sure you're going to live to see the next day? Better yet, why would you not just abandon it? Like guys did in the little punk ass Russian pilot who drove the fucking helicopter to Ukraine and ended up getting murked out in Spain. That's how it works. That's called justice. Anyway, on paper, the NFM provides a pragmatic solution to NATO's vulnerabilities against the possible Russian aggression. In practice, however, the force model has 3 main weaknesses. First, European nations generally lack critical enablers to sustain large scale combat deployment, particularly in integrated air and missile defenses. Russia's war in Ukraine has demonstrated a prolonged conflict can quickly deplete existing stocks of interceptors, loitering munitions, and combat drones. Second, NATO has never pulled off such a large scale deployment to date. The peak of Alliance's Afghanistan invasions, the peak of the Alliance's Afghanistan mission involved roughly 130,000 troops, including personnel from partner nations. Assembling 500,000 warfighters as soon as 1 month after the start of hostilities would be, at best, challenging for NATO. At best, it would be challenging. At worst, we're fucked. Fubar. Snafu and Fubar. Situation normal, all fucked up, and fucked up beyond all recognition. Okay? Snafu Fubar is what that would be. Levying multiple armies, deploying vast numbers of soldiers and platforms overseas at high readiness levels, and ensuring logistical continuities in a high tempo war are challenges most allied nations have never faced. So, meaning this shit on paper sounds good. A lot of shit sounds good on paper. I'm imagining Russia right now, cause like the nation, like looking at the white gloves that they dirtied up, that they knew they should have took off at first, and just taking off the white gloves and just being like, I'm about to get my fucking hands dirty, bro. Anyway, let's keep reading and get done with this. Third, any unit is only as effective as its command structure. At present, NATO's command structure is centered on 2 strategic military commands: Allied Command Operations, ACO, in Mons, Belgium, and Allied Command Transformation, ACT, in Norfolk, Virginia. These strategic commands are supported by 3 operational commands: Joint Force Command Brunsum in the Netherlands, which focus on the NATO's east; Joint Force Command Norfolk, which focuses on the North Atlantic sea lanes; the Joint Force Command Naples, which was responsible for the south; and Joint Force Command Norfolk, which focus on the North Atlantic sea lanes. 3 tactical commands complete NATO's command structure: Allied Air Command at Ramstein, Germany; Allied Land Command in Izmir, Turkey, and Allied Maritime Command in Northwood, UK. The practical problem with this command structure is that it is designed for peacetime rather than wartime. Yeah, Turkey at wartime is gonna fucking say, fuck y'all, we're on Russia's side. No shit. Worse, the ability of NATO Strategic Command and Mons and Norfolk to run adequate verification in the third largest tier of the NFM is highly questionable. While SNAP exercises and surprise inspections could accomplish this task, allied nations are generally reluctant to pursue such procedures because it would keep people at a high level of readiness. The level of logistics it would take to be able to do SNAP exercises and surprise inspections, you have to keep shit dressed right, dressed at all fucking times. And these dudes are not military disciplined enough for that. Right on? You keep lowering the bar and lowering the bar and lowering the bar and lowering the bar. Nigga, I have no piercings, no tattoos, no none of that shit on my fucking body, nigga. Word? I didn't need fucking waivers for none of that shit. You need a waiver to get a maybe you don't now. Maybe it's so shitty it doesn't even matter if you have tattoos. Back in the day, dude, it didn't matter where the tattoo was at. If you had a tattoo on your body, especially if it was visible once your sleeves were rolled up, right on. If you had any kind of sleeve tattoos, you had to have a waiver. Had to. Had to have a waiver. Had to. You drop the shit so low. Snap exercises, which you should be ready to do at any time, and surprise inspections, you should be ready for at any time. If you ain't ready, you just ain't ready. You stay ready so you don't have to get ready. Moreover, with Finland and Sweden becoming the newest alliance members, the Nordic and Baltic structures have been revisited. Experts suggest that the alliance should make the most of Finland and Sweden's accessions by establishing new Joint Force Command, JFC North. According to this, the Nordic nations, with 360,000 active and reserve forces, 290 naval assets, 250 aerial combat craft, and thousands of pieces of heavy armor, offer considerable opportunities for NATO planners. Analysts have also proposed the creation of JFC East, preferably in Poland, to address the area of alliance most likely to see Russian aggression. Geography often remains the most critical consideration compelling NATO's strategic calculus. For example, the Estonian town of Narva, a possible location of Russian invasion, is roughly 1,367 miles from JFC Brunson. Right. So you're trying to put shit in places that you think you should have it, but you fuck around and just get dudes crushed. Right. And you don't want to have it so close to another area where the shit overlaps and then you're thin and somewhere else. You don't have the ability to deploy or redeploy troops in another area just like that. But command structure is not NATO's only challenge. See, all these challenges NATO's having, this name, he didn't name like 30 different things and said that there was only a couple per whatever. These motherfuckers got a litany of challenges. Two other problems test the alliance. The first is bureaucratic. If hostilities arise, Allied command operations could only activate the Allied force structure, but the plans in motion would, with the approval of the Northern Atlantic Council, a hurdle that could give a cunning adversary critical time to maneuver. As the head of ACO, the Supreme Allied Commander Europe needs more flexibility to place the alliance on a wartime footing. Meaning they need to be able to just make decisions. And let's just say that you have good relations with another nation. We're not trying to hear you going over there and work out peace. Fuck all the peace shit, nigga. We're beefing. I'm trying to give it to y'all in regular language so that way you understand. All right. There is no time for diplomacy. That's why you use that word bureaucratic. NATO's second additional challenge is a military one. In conventional warfare, retaking territory in a counteroffensive is far more difficult than holding and defending it. A Russian invasion, even a temporary one, is not something that NATO allies can shrug off, and the consequences for people caught in occupied territory would be tremendous. The small Baltic states, seeing the tragedy in Ukraine, rightfully feel the greatest threat. In 2024, Hudson Institute dispatched a field study mission to Ukraine. The Hudson team meticulously assessed the area of the country that spent significant time under Russian control before liberation. Our findings were clear. Places like Bucha and Irpin held mass graves and a traumatized society. The Russian military committed ethnic cleansing in these towns within 80 days of its full scale invasion. One cannot rule out that Russia would do the same thing should it ever take the Baltic states. Wargaming efforts by Western think tanks have shown that the Russian military is capable of reaching the outskirts of Tallinn and Riga within 60 hours. Riga is in Latvia. An Estonian prime minister, Riga is the capital of Latvia. As, a, as Estonian Prime Minister Kaya Kallas has stated, an even short-lived invasion of any Baltic nation could wipe that country from the face of the earth forever. Taking back captured territory in the Baltics would require and maintain air superiority is a much more difficult option than never relinquishing the territory in the first place. So they're saying to get it back would be way harder than just to keep it. But you could just say, hey, just take it, Russia, don't kill us. And then nobody would die. Whatever. Ukraine's struggles have also revealed the weakness of enhanced forward presence. The Allied new force model, therefore, should be more than a large scale. It should be more than a large version of enhanced forward presence. It should mark a firm transition from deterrence by punishment to deterrence by denial, which aims to deter an adversary by delaying or denying aggression. NATO needs forward defense, not merely a forward military presence. Unfortunately, most European NATO nations, with the notable exception of the UK, France, Poland, and Turkey, lack large combat formations that can sustain a prolonged war against Russia after an Article 5 triggering attack against an allied member, an alliance member. The war in Ukraine has shown that mass matters in war. Intensive artillery salvos, large combat formations, and armored assaults are now accompanied on contemporary battlefields by drone warfare assets and satellite intern-driven command and control capabilities. Niggas ain't doing shit. If you're not boots on the fucking ground, you can't do shit. They have yet to win a war with just fucking drones, yo. If they could do that, they would do it. Trust me. If it could be done, they would have done it already. If they could have just droned Russia into submission, they would have done that shit. Moreover, the ability to roll back Russian conventional combat formations in Europe will require achieving air superiority, if not supremacy, at the onset of any conflict. In 2023 alone, NATO air forces across Europe scrambled over 300 times to intercept VKV aircraft approaching alliance territory. According to NATO sources, most of those intercepts occurred over the Baltic Sea. The alliance has standing air policing missions that call for allied nations' combat aircraft to scramble when Russia breaches its airspace. So, meaning none of these guys, other than France, the UK, or France, Germany, Poland, that's it. Those are the only ones. Because you can't even put America in NATO like that are all right there that can do anything as far as air defense is concerned. That's why America has to have bases over there to launch at a moment's notice, because technically they're too fucking far away to do anything for anybody. Last, European air forces need to be able to suppress Russian surface-to-air missile systems without a significant American air campaign to support them. I was just talking about this. To accomplish this goal, European air forces need to increase their supplies of anti-radiation missiles and other long-range solutions. So they would need to get anti-nuke, is what he's saying. Anti-radiation means anti-nuke. Conclusion. Studying the warfighting of capacities of NATO and Russia is challenging. While the clash between two powers remains hypothetical, still it appears that the Russian military may currently hold the upper hand in a blitz-style limited conflict against NATO. Limited? Bitch, you just talking about long-term. How the fuck would it be limited? The alliance enjoys overall superiority over the Kremlin. No, they enjoy the American. See what I'm saying? See, they won't say that. NATO has superiority to Russia in most emerging technologies, cumulative defense spending, and total manpower. Moscow, however, enjoys the upper hand in two areas. First, the Russian military has local superiority over NATO's forward presence in Eastern Europe. No fucking shit. They don't have to go anywhere. You'd have to come and fight them if that was the case. The alliance's limited forward defense capacity and challenges with mobility and large scale deployment, moreover, offer opportunities for the Kremlin to make gains in any offensive action. Second, Russia's defense industry and military have adopted to years of attritional conflict and high tempo combat operations while sustaining thousands of casualties per month. As a result, NATO is bringing new urgencies to its efforts to ensure deterrence by denial against potential Russian aggression. Whether the alliance can field a fighting force at the scale in a prolonged setting remains to be seen. What's this bitch ass nigga's name again? All right, we read this whole article. All right, we it took well, it took longer than the appropriated time because I started breaking shit down. What this bullshit? Hold on, man. What the fuck? This nigga's name is Khan Kasapoglu, Pasakol Kasapolju, Polju, whatever the fuck this nigga's name is. Look, before I stop sharing, hold on. Look at my point. Military spending as a share of the 1992 between 1992 and 2020. This is GDP. This is comparing it to NATO. Need y'all to understand this. Germany spent the least. One of the saber rattling ass niggas over there right now talk about what they'll help do. The fucking Ukrainians do. They need to sit their bitch asses down somewhere while they're still sending bombs and shit to fucking Israel. Then it's China. Not even going to talk about that. Then it's the UK. Skipping them. Now the US and Russia are very interesting because for many years the US outspends Russia. But right now the Russians are outspending the US and have been for the last what seems like 8 years going on 9. And the reason why that's so important is because the Russians understood the ability to be able to fight the United States is going to be in sheer numbers. So like I said, the dudes who send out faulty warheads, he sent that shit out knowing that shit was faulty. All he can hope is that it doesn't explode in the fucking howitzer that it's being delivered in. That's what you call the actual gun for artillery. It's typically considered a howitzer. So when you are going through that process and you know that every day so if you're supposed to get out thousands a day, dude, there's a fucking quota. They're not trying to hear you coming up short, bro. You will come up short if the quota ain't met. But note how China was able to spend less money and still have certain capabilities because they stole the technology. They didn't work for it. They didn't see what I'm saying. If the Russians had did the same dirty shit the Chinese did, if they had had the ability to do it, right? Because white dudes look down on them. They look down. The Chinese think Asians typically think they're more intelligent than white people. But the thing is, white people look at them like they look at all other mongoloids, like savage ass, nasty motherfuckers. So, however smart you think you are, you're not that smart because you had to copy me to get it. And that's how white people look at them. Right. Understandably so. The same way niggas look at white people. You're not that fucking smart because you copied me, bitch. Right. So see how that dynamic works? However, when you can look right here and see this spike in spending, unmatched by the US. See, the US was just cool and chilling, right? Your boy D. Treasy had got in 2016. He didn't see the need to spend on all that shit. While Russia, right, while he was polishing off your boy Putin, right? And only until we get into that 2020 part where shit starts to look kind of crazy, are they starting to spend a little more money. But Russia's already beat them to the punch. That's why they're able to sustain the fighting that they have been sustaining, even though it's been to the behest of or with the help of Iran, North Korea, and China. Their assistance obviously has been imperative and very helpful to the struggle. But when I say that the white gloves are about to fucking come off of Rick, I can already see it and sense it. If it's gonna take the Germans to 2027 to produce 1.1 million 124 millimeter howitzers, right? Artillery shells per year annually, you ain't gotta worry about it. You have to worry about it. Russia's like Russia had so much of this shit, and they're able to use. And this is why when people say, "Oh, we have state of the art this and state of the art that," they didn't need state of the art that. They didn't need that. They were able to use all their shit, all their old shit. They had to get it to certain places and put themselves in certain positions. The Russians would not have pushed up on the Ukrainians had the Ukrainians said, "You know what? We'll give up on these NATO ambitions. We'll give up on them for now." Even if it's just lying. These niggas didn't even lie. They just tried to do some dumb shit. And look what it cost them. Look what it's costing. Look what it's cost us. Every taxpayer has had to pay a lot more money for all this bullshit, right? But I got relatives in Mississippi. I got relatives in Alabama that could use this tax dollars. Imagine how much greater that money would have been sent to the state of Mississippi as opposed to being sent to the Ukrainians. And a whole bunch of the money and a whole bunch of the shit that they've sent over there is unaccounted for. Which is why America has tightened the purse strings on what they're giving to those niggas. Because they can't even account for the money. Right. This surprise incursion by Ukraine, kiss of have you ever seen somebody commit suicide by police? This is tantamount to that. It's suicide by the Russian Federation on behalf of Ukraine. I've said a lot of stuff before about a lot of other places. Ukraine will never be the same. Even if they sit down and get some kind of weak ass ceasefire hashed out, it won't change nothing. It won't change shit. They cooked themselves. They're cooked. They're cooked. The most important thing I have to say about this whole shit about Rick taking off the white gloves. Maybe 5 months ago, 6 months ago, Putin was doing a speech and he was talking about Zelensky. And he made this point that I had never known. He was like, he was like, Zelensky is a Jew ethnically. Like by blood, he's actually a Jew. Right on? And he was trying to point out how Zelensky had more in common with Netanyahu than he had with actual true Ukrainians. Right. Are they not funding Ukraine and Israel? So how is Russia not more like Palestine? Naturally, they are. People just don't see it like that. Even if they're not Muslims by wholesale, that's not the thing I'm making. The indication is that the Israelis are funded by the Americans and Western powers. Ukraine is being funded by Americans and Western powers. I think it's time for Rick to take off the white gloves and just bitch slap the fuck out of these niggas. Take scales, flakes, skin, hair, mucous membranes all off their face while you slap the shit out of them because they deserve it. They utterly, totally, I mean, unimaginably deserve this. They deserve it. With that said, brothers and sisters, I had to get this off my heart, my chest, because I feel like people might be thinking that You can keep asking for these reparations in this land. They didn't sent. They sent my trillion to Ukraine already and to Israel. They already sent the trillion from each. See what I'm saying? They keep giving away if they just started giving niggas the trillion, they can end all the fuckery now. Y'all think I'm tripping, but when the push come to shove and the shit really pops off, there's gonna be some niggas like they should have just gave that nigga Meech a trillion. He would have got us out of here. He'd have put it all up to make sure we got out of this bitch. Don't worry though. When it's too late to ask for help, you won't have anything to say. And with that being said, when the Most High God takes the white gloves off on this earth and punishes all life that is upon it, the mercy will be survival. But all will go through that which the Most High God shall put all life through. That will not be born until afterwards. May he forever be worshipped and praised. And may your next day be better than today. May tomorrow be better than today. And may your next week be better than this last one, the one that we are currently somehow still within. I salute you. I salute you again. I salute you once more. You'll never forget when they brought us here, they never had gloves on in the first place.